First two games of the World Blitz Championship final. Magnus Carlsen, Nodirbek Abdusattorov. Oman, it's about to go down.
It is. This is what we're all waiting for. Magnus stormed back in the competition after being 23rd at one point, nearly being mathematically counted out, but he came back with a lot of draws on the top boards. He won game after game after game, put himself in a position to enter the top four, and with a win over Fabiano in the semifinals is now facing the man on your screen right now, Nodirbek Abdusattorov, who has had a phenomenal tournament in his own right. He snuck in with the best tie breaks on that 13-point score after the first 19 rounds of the Swiss, and he beat Arjun Erigaisi, who dominated the Swiss portion of the World Blitz Championship. He beat him what could have been 3-0, 2.5 to half, and a dominant performance, and now faces off against Magnus Carlsen.
That's right. And what you do is you never count out a Magnus Carlsen. You know, it's never over until it's really over. Of course, as you said, 23rd place at some point to now in the final here. Okay, here we go. D45. Looks like, Queen's Gambit accepted. I know he likes playing this. Nodirbek does.
He takes it right away, and Magnus going for the slightly more tame E3. Note that the move E4 is definitely an option by White in order to recapture on C4, but carries a lot more risk. And certainly with game number one here of this 4-game match, I don't think we're looking for anything too crazy from game number one. A very smart decision from Nodirbek to play the Queen's Gambit accepted, which does carry, some pretty equal tendencies with the move C5 and C takes D4, leading to a symmetrical pawn structure.
Yeah, you can get C5. You can also get B5 and C5 in some cases, just to expand a little bit and have an easy game. Still lots of play. What did he play? B6. Ooh. Keeping pieces on. A little bit different. He wants to play C5 later. Knight B to D, castles, break with C5.
Again, yeah, nothing too crazy here from Magnus. Knight B to D2. This bishop often ends up, in some cases, dropping back. Remember, black can kick it out with the move B5. C5 is played, and Magnus needs to react to C5. Either you leave the pawn there on D4 and you recapture with a piece. One thing that you will not see normally is the pawn take on D4 and be recaptured with a pawn. That would give an isolated pawn for no apparent reason. And usually you're going to see either White capture or recapture on D4 with the knight in order to maintain that symmetry.
Yeah, and pawn takes on C5. So normal stuff. Take it with a knight or bishop. He takes with the bishop. Yeah. So they both like positions like this, where it's just gradual growth, improving my position, putting pieces on better squares than what they currently are. Knight C4. Exactly. Queen E7, stopping exactly that.
And one of the reasons that this knight on C4 is so strong, it's tempting to kick it out with B5, especially when the move B4 is an idea here, trapping the bishop on C5. However, B5 would allow knight A5, and that bishop starts to run out of squares. So that's why you see a pause from Nodirbek and A5 played in order to take control of that B4 square.
Very nice move, knight to D4 here. I think he's looking at things like bishop F3, knight to B5. B5 square was
precisely knight D4. You give squares, you get squares, James. Once we see A5, Magnus says, okay, weaken B5 square. I can start to target that with knight D4. Normally, it would not be an idea to give away the dark square bishop for no reason. And Magnus is executing a very standard plan of bishop back to E2 and then to F3. Trade that light square bishop. And why do we want to do that? We see the pawn structure, dark squares, dark square bishop, which means the light squares are going to be very weak in the position if you can make that exchange happen. Now, again, nothing crazy happening here, but these are the plans and the ideas behind the moves that Magnus is making. Knight E4 from Nodirbek is a standard reply to not permit that exchange, but instead he plays bishop takes on F3, and I'm assuming that we're going to see queen takes F3, targeting C6.
Queen takes F3 on the board, and knight to D5. Bring a knight to the center. Could go knight B5. Again, he went with knight f5. Cool move to damage the pawn structure.
And yeah, and it had to be taken, by the way. That knight f5 move was actually hitting the g7 pawn and the queen. So a fancy move that is really just an exchange of knights. And queen e6, Magnus is in his element here, James. An endgame approaches us, and the pawn structure slightly damaged. I would argue that the minor pieces for black are a bit subpar compared to white's. So classic Magnus, I believe, a slightly better position. But let's see how he's going to treat this. Is he going to trade the queens? Is he going to keep the queens with queen e5 so he does not fix the pawn structure for Nodirbek? He goes for the endgame, James, directly.
Fixes the pawn structure, but e6 is sort of weak. My rooks look nice on d1 and c1. b3 is sort of a weakness, but I guess black has the same in b6 on the b6 pawn. So up to, he traded. More trades. Bishop versus knight imbalance.
Yeah, this is something you can do. You can just take, you can play a4. He's probably evaluating, is there any need or reason to maybe bring the rook in or bring the king in? But sometimes you can play this position, just play moves like king f1, a4, and Magnus knows long-term it might be a draw. It's equal. But when you have the knight and you have pawns fixed on dark squares, Magnus knows that he can outplay here, and he's going for this endgame, James.
He's going exactly for that. I mean, going to a strong suit, which, he can do anything in this games here, tactical or not, but definitely loves those in-games. Why not go for it? In-game masterclass, knight versus bishop, nice imbalance, where a pawn structure is not the greatest for black. Still equal, though.
So I'm looking at the move knight takes a5 just to consider. There is bishop a3 in response, which is why that move is not occurring. Magnus does not really want to go into these complications unless it's a forced win or something. I'm expecting that we'll see a4. It does concede the b4 square, but the bishop is kind of stuck on c5 defending b6 at the moment. So I won't say that this position is better for Magnus, but it's certainly preferable. According to the engine, zeros, but we'll see if Magnus can squeeze anything, as he is known to do. That engine eval it's not enough to count Magnus out.
Well, after this knight to b2 move, I like this maneuver he's going for with knight to d3 and maybe over to c5. Mm-hmm. Maybe you have a rook trade too and try to use, here it is. Oh, he went rook c4. Idea. Oh, he's going to the other side. Ooh, he might have forgotten about that. He might
rook trade is not detrimental. Exactly. It's not detrimental, but you'd probably want to keep the rooks on the board as long as you can and maybe trade them on better terms. So you'll probably see, again, this idea of knight d3, but the rook can slide to h4, just getting these creepy crawly moves, maybe get h6 played in the position. It's possible that this rook could actually station itself on h5, a light square. You're putting pressure on the rook here, and you could continue with something like maybe h3, g4, or then you can bring the knight into the game. So I think that Magnus is applying a little bit of pressure here. As the time gets low, things are going to get critical.
And I do like the fact that he kicks the rook away, makes him do something. He plays h6, which is why he played bishop f8 to defend against this threat, which was very vital. Now the bishop is a little loose or a little occupied. Knight f4, nice move with knight. Wait, can he go
now?
There?
Rook c5,
I guess he
pretty
could.
much forced here.
Yeah, knight g6, bishop g7. He's going for it.
So bishop to g7 here. We might see rook back to d4, and you're trying to get that piece to go to the wrong side. Bishop d6 instead. Now the a pawn is probably going to be black's, as well as rook c2 counterplay, but a clear path to victory for Magnus. Not that it's winning, but he has an h pawn he can try to push here.
Yeah, absolutely. Pass pawns must be pushed. Now I got two of them. Well, maybe the b pawn's not the easiest to push, but h pawn is down the board. He is trying to run that thing down the board, boys. Check. Moving quickly.
Oh, Magnus out of sorts there. He lost the handle on the position.
Oh my goodness.
Did not make the necessary move. This would be very uncharacteristic for Magnus to lose this game.
He lost the game. He lost the game. I don't know what happened. He lost the game.
It's so unusual for him in a masterclass game, knight against bishop, all controlling the light squares. Nodirbek understood perfectly what he had to do with the bishop to generate counterplay, and he actually wins that position against Magnus in a shocker of a game 1.
Oh my goodness, I would be molding so mad. I'm playing well, I get the pawn, I grind the position, I do everything I can do, and then you flag. And you running out of time. He lost control of the position here as we see Magnus on the screen walking away, understanding he's not too mad about it, but he's like, come on. Wow, first one to win there, Abdusattorov with the black pieces, and now